Well, here we are back at the fire truck. We managed to get gas to it. We managed to get spark to it. We managed to make sure there was compression in it. And we actually got it to blast a couple of times. Actually made a couple of bangs and some smoke. But then all of a sudden the starter didn't work. And why was that? Well, if you look at the one on the bottom, that belongs in this machine. And if you take a look at that Bendix spring, it's kind of shot. It failed because it probably came out of a 1937 Chevrolet. Because see, we took one of these apart, which I have no idea what it was in, and we put the Bendix spring in this. And because we're cranking a huge engine instead of a little Chevy 6, the spring crapped out on us. So I'm going to have to replace that spring and put it back on the self-commencer and see how long it's going to last. So that's the main part of this adventure. 2 steps forward and 1.5 steps back. Okay, folks, it's me again, Uncle Jeff, or Dirt Bomb, or whatever you want to call me. I'll probably answer to it. We are now underneath this 1912 Seagrave fire truck. And as I mentioned before, the starter drive, which we Mickey Mouse together from some old car parts, went gafungo and twisted up the Bendix spring. So we found another Bendix spring. I have no idea what it came off of, probably a 1936 Chevrolet or something. But all the torque of that huge motor, and let me tell you, that sucker's big. To turn this huge engine goes through that spring, and the spring is what failed. So I have put it back together with another unknown spring, and hopefully it'll last long enough to get this old girl to start. So I'm going to turn this up so you can see how I reassemble this drive on what in those days was called a self-commencer. So we will take a look at this self-commencer. Let's see if I got a good picture of it here. Okay, you can see the whole thing from here. Now, the shaft is bent. When you see it spin, it's about 1/4 of an inch out. And, you know, getting that thing out of there and trying to straighten that thing would probably be more trouble than it's worth. So I may have to wail on this thing and use some brute force and fucking ignorance to get it to fit. So I am going to smear a little grease on this because the Bendix thing has to slide on. I'll put a little more grease on it. This is going to be so much fun. I just can't wait. But I already did it once before. So I don't know how long this diversion will last, but I've got 2 or 3 more of those Bendix springs that the owner of this museum came up with. So I have probably an unlimited supply. This guy's got a shop you wouldn't believe. He has never thrown away anything in his whole life, and he's not about to. So he had several boxes of springs. Let's see if we can get this old girl together. Now you can see, I'm going to check the picture here. Yeah, you can see that I got a replacement spring on this turkey. And so I'm going to try to see if I can slide it or beat it or whatever it takes to get it on this shaft. And I have to line up this bolt hole with the spring as it goes on, because that bolt anchors this thing. Okay, now I'm going to have to get a little bit angry with it because we've got another 1/2 inch to go, and that's where we're getting into that bent shaft. So we have what's called a hammer and a punch and a little bit of inertia in the right place. We'll probably move this thing to where we want it. We're getting there. We're getting real close. I may have to beat it back off of there because that bolt hole isn't quite lining up with the spring. Yeah, I think I can make it work. Another 1/8 of an inch. Are you guys having as much fun as I am? I love working on this old stuff. Like that Caterpillar video I sent you. Okay, let's see if we can't put that bolt in there. And of course it's right handy. Well, I thought I set all that crap down here. Maybe it's on the running board. Let me go look. No, it's not. Damn it. Okay, we found the bolt and the 2 nuts. And we're trying to see if we could get them fitted in there. So this spring can't go anywhere, but except it can fail, of course, like the last one did. We'll see if we can get this through that hole. No, we don't want you in there. Oh, geez. Okay, get that out of the flywheel. And then we'll see if we can get this thing in. Okay, maybe we can just auger it in with the wrench. Okay, folks, we are back and we are going to try to collapse that spring enough to get another nut on that bolt. It'll work if it doesn't pop off and hit me in the face. Now, where's our other knert? There it is. Okay, now we need 2 9/16 open-end wrenches to tighten that lock nut. It isn't got much purchase on that bolt. Actually, we don't need this vice grip in our way because if it pops off, it could hit me in the face and I don't want that. I mean, I want this thing to turn freely when I put electricity in it, but I don't want it to turn freely while I'm tightening this thing. God darn it. Okay, that's pretty tight. Now, what happens, how this works, is when that starter motor spins this way, this thing through inertia unscrews itself and engages the flywheel. Now, I really would like to have this thing a little far forward, so I'm going to drive it forward some more, because that'll unload that spring somewhat and get it to the point where this could completely engage this flywheel gear. So we will get the hammer again and we'll see if we can't drive this thing on that bent shaft a little farther. God darn it. Okay, now this gear can go up. Okay, I'm going to drive it on a little further. I hope I never have to take it off again. But, you know, when you put something together permanently, you always have to take it apart again later. Okay, now that sucker is pretty close to where we want it. That gear can fully engage the flywheel. Okay, that looks real good, doesn't it? All right, if that old appendix spring out of a Model T or wherever the hell it came out of doesn't go fungo like the last one, we could try to get this old girl started. So I'm going to reposition this camera so you can see if it starts. Are you folks still in there? It's me again, Uncle Jeff Dirt Bomb. We think we had a failed condenser, because what happened was we ended up with the ignition system grounded out at the breaker points, which wasn't right. So we checked the old condenser and it seems to have failed. So we found another one, we put it in there, we got good spark, and right now we are going to try to make this old girl run again. So I will turn the ignition switch on right here and hook it up to that right there. I'm not going to do anything, go ahead and crank it a bit. Because we have no coolant in this wonderful old thing, we're not going to run it very long, but now we're going to start figuring out how we can connect a mismatched radiator to an engine that's also missing a water pump. So that's the next phase.